like to bring the June 20th, 2023 Township of Hamilton Committee meeting to order. Please rise for a flag salute. Dr. Witherspoon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building, by faxing notice of this meeting to the Press of Atlantic City and the Star Ledger on January the 6th, 2023, and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City and the Star Ledger on January 9th and January 10th, 2023. Mr. Cheek?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Schenker?
Here.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Here.
Mayor Patali?
Here. Moment of silence for private reflection. Thank you. We'll start off with guest presentations. Community Solar. Here. Yep, right there.
So Yvette was supposed to be here and she couldn't make it. So I am Francine Saravia of our Sustainable Jersey Green team. And I would just like to introduce to you the subject of community solar. Community solar is a program, I'm just going to read because I'm not a very good public speaker. I hope that doesn't bother anybody. Community solar is a program through the BPU, the Board of Public Utilities, and it provides a path for electrical utility customers who can't put solar on their property to realize cost savings and reduce their carbon footprint. It's an action that can earn us credits through Sustainable Jersey, and so this action has two sections. I'm only going to focus on the first section. Presently, subscribers to Community Solar can realize up to 25% savings from their Atlantic Electric utility costs. Any utility customer can sign up as a participant in the to a solar installation and receive credit on their utility bill for electricity created at other solar projects. New Jersey Community Solar Energy is a pilot program which establishes stringent requirements that the BPU uses to evaluate and approve community solar projects. The BPU has several projects which have been approved that would be available to our community of Hamilton Township. Unfortunately, all of these projects guarantee some savings and a big benefit to our community. Unfortunately, capacity is limited and availability is on a first come, first served basis. So right now there's two projects which will be ready within the year for our municipality. They're located in Egg Harbor Township and in Millville. There's a total of 760 subscriptions available total in these two projects. There will be more projects that come down, but they won't be ready within the next year. So a problem that is for these projects is that people are hesitant to sign up for something that seems too good to be true. So that's where our township can make a difference and ensure that our residents are able to take advantage of this program. So what I'm proposing today is in order to make community solar more attainable here in Hamilton Township and to receive credit through Sustainable Jersey, there's two things. First, I think in your package you have a draft resolution which shows our support for the state program, and it highlights any criteria that we as a township decide are important for those types of projects, such as like a minimum of 51% of that solar energy has to go to low and moderate income households, minimum of 20% discount. These are all just like such as we can make our own decisions. I think an important criteria would be that there's never any price escalation or cancellation fees, because that's usually where the scam kind of things really get you. And if we're vetting that, then our community will benefit more. Okay, so secondly, the Green Team would like to commit to community outreach. Most of that's going to be done by volunteers on the Green Team, to let you know. So the only thing that's mandatory that the township would have to do is create a page on our township website that explains community solar and gives a link to that website, which is the BPU Clean Energy Program. And you can see that, oh, it's not on there. There's a place on there that you can put your zip code in. It'll show you every community solar project that's available through the BPU. And I think that link has been made available to you as well. The other kind of things for outreach would be like tabling and talking to people at like township community events, making posters, putting things on the sign, having workshops. We don't have to do all of those things. They're just examples. Mass emails, social media posts, and the list. The list like of community education and outreach is very large. So I also want to mention that municipalities here in Atlantic County have already started to prepare for this. They've begun to make sure that their residents are made aware of this program and have the opportunity to take advantage of it. So the Green Team feels that it's important for us to get on board as well. So, I'm going to read this again, I'm sorry. It's important to the Green Team that we set Hamilton in a position to be able to vet these projects and share the information with our residents. It's only fair that good programs, which are state taxpayer funded, are accessible to our community. Now, one of the things that is controversial is that we would partner with, we can partner with the projects that are coming down the line, which means that on that website we have a link so that our community can sign up. And what that benefits is that the benefit to us is that we'll get a deeper, our community will realize, I'm nervous. The way that'll benefit us is that our community will realize more savings. So instead of 20% or 21% with this project that's available right now, it would be 25%. But, they'd also help us with outreach and education, like materials and stuff, if we wanted. But to be clear, we can partner with every single project that comes online and is available to Hamilton Township. We're never, ever going to be supporting just one company. It just so happens that right now in 2023, there's only one company that is approved for Atlantic Electric, and that's our utility. So I appreciate your attention and your time, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer it. I was supposed to have Solar Landscape, the company, come here today, but they weren't able to make it, and they are really the experts. I have, I'm educated and I've done a lot of research, but so anyway, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I do have a question. The Atlantic Electric is the approved company for this project, and they have been behind. they have not been able to keep up with the grid. Has that changed?
That actually has changed just recently. We were in a blackout zone because we had so many solar projects here in our area that it would have overwhelmed the
Right.
the system, the grid. Thank you. But recently they've made upgrades to the grid, I think. I'm not sure, don't hold me on that. But they did open up the availability to that. And when they made the blackout, they already had accounted for these two projects that are going online because they've been in the works for a couple of years now.
So the grid can now handle it because it could not handle it a few months ago. And people were applying for the solar energy and could not participate because Atlantic Electric could not keep up with the many customers that were trying to participate.
Right, the grid wasn't available. And I'm not an expert on that, but I did have a couple of conversations at the most recent Sustainable Jersey Summit with people who were in the solar energy field, and they told me that it was a precaution that they had put us in blackout because they wanted to make sure that the grid would be able to handle it. But that's hearsay, so I'm not gonna, please don't hold me to that. Anything else?
Does a resident have to sign up for solar energy through the Atlantic Electric? Is that?
No, the sign up is actually at whichever company is building the system. So right now, the company is called Solar Landscape, and you can go to this website, put your email, your zip code in, and sign up today for getting your electricity created with solar. You'd get a 21% discount off of Atlantic Electric. If we were to partner with this company or any other company, we would have a link, an association link, that might not be the right word, and it would be on our webpage and our community could go there. And it's not just residents, it's businesses, it's places of worship. Any utility customer the township, if they wanted to, could buy their electricity from this project. So anyway, you would go to their site, you would sign up, they would do an evaluation of how much electricity you had used and figure out how much your bill would be. So you would be billed by them. The same way that I'm billed by my solar, the company that put solar on my roof, I lease them. So I pay them for my solar panels. I generate a lot of electricity, and I hardly ever get an electric bill. Sometimes in the summer I do. So it's sort of the same thing, except they're generating the electricity in Millville or in Egg Harbor City, just like they're generating our electricity at the power plant, right? So it's sort of the same thing. I see it as you're leasing solar panels that are on a project somewhere in Millville or Egg Harbor Township.
Do you have any testimonies of people who have actually saved, who are participating in solar? Because I've heard different stories. Some have said they saved, and other people said they were paying more money.
Okay, so people who have solar panels on their house is going to be different than this. The community solar is a guaranteed 25% discount from Atlantic Electric if we partner with this company. Whatever the contract that we make with that company. So there's going to be other companies coming down the pike. And I think it's important if we have that resolution for us to say, we will partner with companies that will guarantee a 20% or a 25% discount and will not escalate their fees and, will not have the hidden fees like cancellation fees and such. And the company Solar Landscape, which is, I don't mean to be doing a sales pitch for them, but they're the only ones. And I've talked to them at length, and all of those things that I just said are part of the contract that our community members would make with them. And let me be clear, all that we're doing is outreach, letting our community know that this is available. The contracts with Solar Landscape are between whoever, the renter, the person that has too much shade on their property, the business owner who can't put solar on their roof, et cetera. It would be between them and Solar Landscape, or whatever other company comes after them.
So there's no investment for the person who owns the home or the business? They're
None.
just buying into a business that sells electricity to Atlantic Electric, and what they get, they divvy up amongst the people who are part of the coalition, so to speak.
That's correct. And there are tax incentives for them
Exactly.
to sell the electricity cheaper. So,
Where they're putting these farms, they're in the optimum places where your backyard might be shaded so it doesn't work for you, or you might not be where you can put solar on your property at all. So this is a way for somebody to reach out and be part of the solar, and get the savings where people that can't do it physically.
correct. And if you're crunchy like me, also know that you're not adding to global warming. So, that, a lot of people feel that's important.
This is just one company that does this, or are there other companies that do it too?
Right now, within the next year, there's one company that's going to be available to
Okay.
Hamilton Township, but the BPU has approved other projects that are being built by other companies. They're just not going to be available within the next year.
If I was to go on this website, would all that information, what's there now and what's coming, or no, just what's here now?
So I was told that there is a place on the BPU website that tells you all of the approved projects. I have not looked for it, so I'm sure someone who's more computer savvy than I am could probably find it.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So to move forward, just because I'd like to get 15 points from Sustainable Jersey and make this available, how will I know what you guys have decided, whether you've decided to move forward with a resolution or not?
Well, I think we'll go ahead and move forward, looking into this to the resolution. And as Art said, do a little bit of searching on that website just to get more information so we know exactly what we're doing, because then obviously the resolution will come up at the next meeting or the following meeting, one of the next two meetings. And then if there's any questions, we'd like to be able to answer those questions.
All right, let me know, and I will try to have someone here. I actually have someone from Sustainable Jersey who's way more knowledgeable than me that can zoom in. There's nobody in this area that does community solar from Sustainable Jersey, but she's a veritable warehouse of knowledge.
Okay.
All
I
right?
think we should have Brett dig
Yeah.
into this deeper and get back to us. From the surface, I don't see any problem with it.
No.
I don't want to make a commitment to something we haven't really looked into.
All right.
Okay?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, addition, deletion of late agenda items to be considered for action tonight. We have addition, 7N, resolution authorizing renewal of liquor license with special conditions, Baker and Carlson LLC, and a change, 7E, resolution of approval to submit a grant application and executed a grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for fiscal year 2024, reconstruction of Malacca Road, Phase 1. The current text reads Phase 4. We're going to change that to Phase 1. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to forward the late list items.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Early public comment.
We have Jim Link for 3A.
Jim Link for 3A. Come on down. Hi, Jim.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, committee. Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I would, respectfully request that perhaps I could make some public comment after the presentation on 3A, only because, that presentation may, alleviate some of my anxieties or answer some questions that I may have, and I won't have to waste anybody's time.
I don't have a problem with that.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Afterwards, then. Thank you.
Bruce Drive for 3A.
Bruce?
Mr. Mayor, I have the same question.
Okay. That's it? Okey dokey. Let's move on to 3A. Here, a report from the redevelopment subcommittee. And I guess we're going to have Phil and our attorney. Phil's going to start, then we'll call on Mr. Malley here.
Move close. Oh, very good.
That's good.
Very briefly, back in February, when this redevelopment reform subcommittee was formed,
Very good.
Is it on?
we've met several times. Is it on green? Yeah, we're on green. Met several times to develop standardized process for the approval of all redevelopment projects in the township. We want to make sure that it's clear from start to finish, the steps that everyone will be going through. This is easier. If I start all over again. Good evening, Mayor, members of the committee, members of the public. In late February, the mayor established the redevelopment reform subcommittee for us to go through the process for projects as they come into the township on redevelopment to make sure that everything is standardized as we move forward as far as step-by-step the ways we move through things. To that end, the committee met, I believe, 3 times to discuss the process and work through it. And with the help of Planning Board Chairman Harry Balicki, he developed this flow chart so that it's hopefully clear the steps that entities will be going through in the future as they come into the township for redevelopment elements. Not only do we do just for straight redevelopment projects, but also since cannabis establishments are regulated under our redevelopment ordinances, we also have a separate flow chart for those. So there's 2 flow charts involved here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Malley, who can do a...
Okay, I'll take you through this. This is simply basically Harry Balecki did a great job of putting a flow chart of the process that we follow on redevelopment projects. It lays it out so hopefully everyone has a better understanding of it. And I'm not going to go into great detail on each step of it. I'll try to just generalize what it is. If anybody has questions as we're going along, happy to address them. Okay. The first 3 blue steps there have to do with. have to do with when a developer comes in with a project and wants to get the support of the township. They would start with an informal discussion with typically it starts, they come in and talk to the administrator, they talk to a member of the committee, they talk to someone at the township to try to begin the process of informal presentation of what their project is, what they're looking to do. That then, if that person who they're in discussion with feels that there's an interest from the township, they'll turn to a redevelopment subcommittee, which is a more formal group we've put together of members of the township committee, the planning zoning board professionals, the township administrator, other relevant officials that we may need for whatever the project is that's being proposed, and counsel and attorneys for the township. There'll be an informal presentation of the project. If there's an agreement from the committee or a consensus that they would like to have it presented publicly, then that project will be presented at a public township committee meeting. If there is an interest from the governing body to proceed with discussions or investigating this project, then they'll vote on that and authorize the preparation of an escrow agreement. In the past, when this has been an issue, that escrow agreement was referred to as an MOU. We're changing the name of it to just be more clear that it is nothing more than the posting of an escrow. It posts the escrow for a continuation of discussions between the developer and the governing body to be at the developer's expense. So there's an escrow posted so that engineer, planning, attorney review by the governing body is paid for by the developer. There's then informal workshops with this redevelopment subcommittee. And what that means is there's discussions, there's negotiation that goes on between the developer with a project that they brought with this redevelopment subcommittee, and there's an attempt to come up with an acceptable project plan. Once that project plan is one that is acceptable to the subcommittee, then it is presented over, I want to say codified, it's put into a draft redevelopment plan, which is the mechanism for creating the zoning controls for that particular project. So that redevelopment plan is then presented to the governing body at a public meeting. The plan is presented to them. It's presented to the governing body. They can decide if they think it's okay or it's not, or they would like certain tweaks to it. They can then proceed to order it to be put in, for a formal plan to be prepared, an ordinance to be introduced to adopt that plan. That ordinance and redevelopment plan then is referred to the planning board. The planning board reviews it for consistency with the master plan. Just about all of these steps are consistent, required and consistent with state law. The planning board decides if it's consistent with the master plan. If they determine it is, they would do a resolution back to the governing body that says this plan is consistent with the redevelopment, with the master plan. Then there's a public hearing on the second reading of the ordinance to adopt that redevelopment plan. That would be voted one way or the other by the governing body, who would adopt a plan, a redevelopment plan, which is the zoning for the project that's been presented. And then the governing body would direct that negotiations commence for a redevelopment agreement. There would be a presentation of the redevelopment agreement, a public meeting, and a vote by resolution of the governing body to authorize execution of that redevelopment agreement. And then the project would go through its normal planning board process for site plan approvals. Then they could begin the process of going in through planning board in order to get site plan approval, which is where all the stormwater and the traffic and all the typical zoning and other state regulatory laws are applied to make sure that a project fully complies with all the laws that are applicable to that project. We have a note at the bottom that different projects may require slightly different process depending on what is going on in it. Might require a few meetings related to some of these topics. So there's one of the values of the redevelopment law is its flexibility. As the governing body has greater needs for more explanation, for more detail of a plan, for revisions to a plan, for revisions to agreement, you've got that ability to, detour a little bit off of some of this to get the project and your agreements to be in the place where you feel it best serves the interests of the township. Okay? So that is pretty quickly a several-month process for most projects. Kind of the bigger, more complicated they are, that process will take a little longer. But that's kind of in a nutshell what the redevelopment process is. It's designed to give the governing body flexibility over what projects are, give them a greater degree of control over what projects are, and give them the tools to make sure that a project that comes out at the end of site plan is one in which they feel is of maximum benefit to the township as a whole. Okay?
Yeah, I haven't,
Go right ahead.
I have an issue with the disclaimer.
Okay?
The process is the usual process for redevelopment projects. Specific facts or circumstances of specific projects may require a change in a step or two from time to time. I don't have a problem or issue if this is the above, what you have articulated very well, is the process. But I have a problem in the change, in the steps. I think it's all or nothing. I mean, I think it should, if this is the process, then that's what we should follow. How do we differentiate between which project needs to change in a couple steps?
So I'll give you an example, okay? And listen, you can do it in a way, if you're if we're doing something a little different, we can announce at a public meeting and say, look, we're not going through steps 3, 4, and 5 here because we don't have to, okay? A project that comes in that needs some help from you because of certain sewer infrastructure or something else that they need help with on a project. But the zoning permits the project, okay? There may not be a need to go through the redevelopment plan process. So if a project comes in and doesn't have zoning, the zoning doesn't fit the project, then that's where and that happens most of the time, okay? That's where a redevelopment plan will be amended, prepared, changed. That's that process. But sometimes you'll have a project come in that conforms with the zone, okay? But they need a redevelopment agreement for some other reason, okay? So you may skip the plan process. You just might not need it, okay? So that is simply, as you can do it where you just come to a point and say, look, this redevelopment project, we haven't done the plan because of this, okay? That's all. It simply meant that on some of the projects, you won't necessarily need every one of those steps, okay? This is the full Monty. This is everything you're gonna need through the run, okay? It's not, and we can make it to be part of your policy that if you're skipping any of it, it's gotta be formally discussed and you all know that that's what's happening and there's a consensus on it.
When a developer comes before the township, do they have to elect whether they're going to go through redevelopment, or just go through the normal process?
So usually if they've come and approached the township, part of their approach to the township is they'd like you to consider including a redevelopment process with them. There are a lot of applications that just go apply for site plan approval and don't go through any kind of redevelopment process. That's what most of your projects do. So it's totally up to the developer on his project, what he's doing, and he comes in and makes that decision if he wants to go that route or not. And then you decide if you want to entertain them in that redevelopment process.
And then it begins at number 1, 2, and so on and so forth.
3A, right through.
I have a question about redevelopment plan sent to the planning board for consistency. Now, if it is inconsistent, does it stop there?
No, does not automatically stop there. If a master plan if a planning board determines that a redevelopment plan is inconsistent with the master plan, the governing body may still adopt the plan. They simply need to set forth on the record their reasons. Okay? So, just to give you an idea, this redevelopment tool is one that even if the master plan is determined that it's not consistent with it, which I can tell you in 40 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever seen one determined to be inconsistent with the master plan, because master plans generally say, we want to make things better, okay? But if it is determined to be inconsistent, the governing body can still, it's up to the governing body as to whether it goes forward or it stops.
So it could stop there?
It could.
Could stop there, it's
If
just,
the governing body chooses to stop there, yes.
okay.
That is
Right here,
7B.
7B. So this process can stop anytime you see one of these stop signs, correct?
Oh, yeah, the governing body can
And
stop it.
just say, we're done, we don't want to do
You
this.
don't need a stop sign up, you can just decide you're gonna stop the
I understand.
process. Yep.
Just so everybody understands that.
Yeah, but in all the stop signs, I think there should be another stop sign there, not just no.
Well, where the stop signs are where the governing body has voted against a step, okay?
Okay,
Planning board does not control that process. They purely make recommendations, and then it's up to the governing body to decide if the process is stopped, okay?
okay.
All right?
So let's talk about this disclaimer for a minute. When you say there's different circumstances, and let's say there is a case where there's a different circumstances, and you're saying that we could skip steps, what steps are we skipping?
Well, it depends on what the circumstance is, okay? But in the example I gave, if the project conforms to your existing zoning, your township code for zoning, somebody's gonna build a commercial building in zone, I don't know your zones, in zone whatever, and it's permitted use, and they're gonna build a building that fits within the bulk standards, like they're not gonna need any kind of relief, not looking for you to give any relief. But they wanna do a redevelopment agreement because they're gonna need some assistance on sewer infrastructure that's coming in, and they wanna hire you to build the sewer, whatever, some other thing they need, and you're amenable to it, then you would not have to adopt a new plan, okay? Because the plan sets forth your zoning on it, and we've got rehab, so you've got authority already to act, okay? So you don't have to do a project-specific plan.
You'd still have a escrow agreement.
You'd have all that stuff. Oh, I
right,
don't
so-
think there's ever a time when you won't have the escrow posted.
So
That gets done
what I'm
first.
concerned about, and what we've seen in our past, is that things got skipped. And this took a lot of time to put together, a lot of thought, and I don't like the disclaimer talking about skipping anything. I don't think it's an
All right,
inconvenience
you can
to
take the
anybody.
disclaimer out. I'll just let you know, there will be steps on this that you won't have to do. That's all.
I'll
You
take
can
that
take the
chance.
disclaimer out. Just sometimes.
I would feel more comfortable if the disclaimer was taken out also, because it just feels as though it depends on who the project is. Not saying, they could skip steps. I think we need to have a model where everyone goes by the same plan. And that way, there is no confusion, we all know the steps, and every project would go through the same process. And it's interesting that you would be talking about septic, because I'm not going to say any names, but I'm hearing of a project that is coming, or a developer that is interested in a project that's going to need that. So I want to make sure that they're following the process.
You got it. And I can tell you, I don't know what that project is that you're referring to. That was just an example I gave, that's all.
We don't control septic or the sewer.
If I could
I
add,
have no idea, just for example.
as
Move closer to the
personally,
microphone. You're far.
I went through the process of getting approved. And when you have a developer or you have someone go to zoning board when they don't have to, number one, that's time. That's a lot of money for the professionals, for the lawyers and everything. To me, if they fit in the zoning criteria, they're not asking for any variances, they're not asking for anything, why make the developer spend $10,000 to go through zoning and the time it takes to schedule zoning when they're not asking for anything? If we were just notified that they're skipping zoning and no one had a problem because they fit in the zoning allowance. If we had a problem, then we could bring them to zoning. But the fact that you have to bring them in and spend probably 2 months for them to prepare, schedule a meeting, and then get the results, that's just delaying a project, and that's more like pushing them to another municipality, in my opinion.
Can I just interject? I just want to say, look, I think, I've been here for a bunch of your meetings, and given where you're at in all this, let's take out the disclaimer language. When something happens that you're gonna skip, you can all figure out how to do it. Like, I think it's a lot easier to deal with it in like a real world situation. If you have a project, something's coming in, I think it'll take away a lot of your fears that, something bad's gonna be happening. Just hold it to a real world. When an application comes in, and if there's a step that we're gonna skip, we can go over it with you and let you know, here's why, this is what's happening, and then you can all decide if you wanna skip it or not. You can just do it like that, but it might be a lot, there's just so many what ifs, and so many different types of projects that come along, that you just let's get rid of the disclaimer, go with what we got, and get you through a process so you, I think if you get a couple that you like, get projects that you like and get them done, I think it'll be a lot more, there won't be as much concern, let's put it that way.
Are you saying that at the redevelopment sent to the planning board for consistency, if it is inconsistent with the zoning, does that take place there?
It's not inconsistent with the zoning. Their determination is whether it's a redevelopment plan sets forth zoning. Okay? It creates new zoning within the plan. The planning board looks at that and determines if that zoning that's proposed is consistent or not with your master plan. That determination then gets turned over to you, and then you decide whether to adopt the plan or not. Okay?
So it isn't necessarily, at that planning board point, it does not jeopardize it moving along if it doesn't, if it does not agree with the zoning, but it creates a new zoning.
Yes, that's the whole point of a redevelopment plan, okay? If someone comes in with a project where they want to build Disney World, okay, in an area of town that is only zoned to have residential houses, all right? And the governing body likes the idea of Disney World in this area, then the redevelopment plan would be written up so that Disney World use would be permitted with the following standards. It has to be this far from an abutting property, it has to have, height can only be this high, all those things would be in the zoning. That's what a plan is. So the plan naturally is going to be different than the zoning, always. They all are, okay? So the plan is then reviewed by the planning board to determine if even though it's different than your zoning, it can still be consistent with your master plan. And most of the time, every master plan will have provisions in it that say, old buildings, land that has been empty for a long period of time, we would like to see them get developed. And that's what a lot of redevelopment projects are. So typically, they're consistent with your master plan. If they are not, it still comes here, and you decide whether you adopt that plan or you do not. The governing body decides
The governing body decided the master plan in the first place.
that. Yes.
The governing body is the only people that can change zoning.
Governing body adopts all your zoning. You adopt it. You can
Right.
change it tomorrow if you want.
Right.
Just correct.
Oh, the
Just correct. The
master plan
master plan is done by the planning board.
Right, the zoning-
However, one of the elements in the master plan that we have to do particularly in the reexamination reports, is identify any areas that may be suitable for redevelopment. So it's an exercise that the planning boards, in most cases, looked at, some sites and said, yeah, these make sense.
Right.
And so in some instances, it's very easy for the planning board to act. In others, where that hadn't been considered, that, they may need to take a deeper dive to figure that out, but it's a process that allows for them to get their input to the committee on that.
All right.
So master plan adopted by planning board, the zoning implementing the master plan, governing body.
Okay.
So it comes before the governing body, say if we wanted to change 5A and make it accommodating a development that was a park for swimming. It wasn't really zoned for that. That would come before our township meeting or township and say, yeah, it could be consistent. It could be something that we really need in our community. So therefore, the township committee could vote on it.
Yes. The governing body is who makes all the decisions in the redevelopment process. The planning board makes a couple of recommendations in that process, but you ultimately make the decision.
I would be very comfortable with this, as I first stated, with the disclaimer being
Disclaimer's gone.
gone, and then you just bring it to us. I'm happy with that.
It's just easy.
Yeah.
You can go. That's fine.
Cool. All right, good.
Well, it looks like there's a lot of work for the subcommittee to do.
There's as much, the work for the subcommittee will be as many projects that you have coming in. That's what that subcommittee will be reviewing projects who want to go through a redevelopment process. It's representatives of township committee, representatives from planning zoning, board professionals, township administrator, township officials that are needed for it, they'll probably be part of it, but if there's you need somebody from engineering, or you need, depending on what the project is, and council.
It's not the subcommittee that formed this report that we're doing tonight.
It-
It's not the same subcommittee.
It had some of the same members, some of the
Nope,
same members.
yeah. No public comment, we got to move this
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Sorry.
Any other questions about the redevelopment process?
Did you go into the cannabis?
That's what
Not-
we're moving on
that's
to now,
next.
just want to make sure we're good with redevelopment first. Catch your breath?
Yes. One other thing I'd like to add on what Mr. Maley has said is that anytime it's going to be coming to the governing body for presentation, it's going to be done at this part of the meeting as far as a discussion item. So anything dealing with redevelopment, and actually when we get into the cannabis stuff also, won't be put on as a consent agenda item. So we want to make sure that the public hears everything that's going on with these items. As far as the cannabis
You
process,
want to talk about what's different? I mean, it's pretty much
yeah,
the same process.
it's very much the same.
Right.
Were you able to make copies? Okay. My apologies. For some reason, we didn't get the cannabis flow chart onto the computer, but we do have copies to hand out for the public if.
Go ahead, yeah,
if you
hand
wanna-
it- whoever wants one. I don't know how many you got.
Yeah. Very briefly with the cannabis, since, okay.
Joe, get one over there?
All right. Thank you, Jim.
We gave, Chantel's giving a copy of the cannabis one out to the public, but I can already tell she's.
If I can get into this, please.
Cannabis process.
The cannabis process
We'll get them to you.
is somewhat similar to the redevelopment process, but since the rehabilitation, our plan for redevelopment and rehabilitation area has already been amended to adopt the zoning code, the zoning standards for cannabis facilities. There's a slightly different process in the beginning. The township has been entertaining proposals for cannabis facilities through a request for qualifications process, an RFQ.
Microphone.
Is this on?
It's working
It's on
now.
now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it, I think.
So we issued the RFQ, the responses come in, which is step 2. We do an immediate review just to make sure that all the checklist requirements typically needed for purchasing as state requirements that finance makes us incorporate are included as part of the process. If you don't have everything, you don't go any further. If the checklist is complete, then there's a internal cannabis review subcommittee consisting of 3 higher-level township employees. The last time around, it was myself, Rita, and Debbie Onemuller, the land use administrator. Previously, it had been the administrator, the community development director, and 1 other employee. So upper-level employees to look at it. They're included in the RFQ is basically a scoring rubric saying you have to show us that you have these items. You have the property under control, whether or not you have veterans as members of your organization, that you have the financials to do the work. There's a whole series of items that they have to prove. And if they score high enough, which it's just like in school, 70 is passing, then it moves on to the next step. If you don't score high enough, the process stops for that person.
Can they come back again?
They would be allowed to reapply the next time around.
Okay.
It's not, that we're not letting supplemental submittals after the deadline.
Okay.
For those that score high enough, there would be a referral to the redevelopment subcommittee to make an informal presentation to them. And if they find the plan acceptable, it would then be forwarded to the governing body for an informal presentation at a public meeting. This is a new step that's been added, so that you have the redevelopment subcommittee looking at these projects. previously, that didn't occur. Governing body would then consider whether or not to endorse the plan, which is the first step required for getting their state license, or not endorse it. If you endorse it, that's done by resolution, and then the applicant would have to file with the state to get their licensing. Once they get their provisional license, then they would come back to the committee, give you an update as far as the status of their project and how they're moving forward with the project. And if it's acceptable, the governing body would then authorize authorize the escrow agreement, and at the same time authorize negotiating a redevelopment agreement with the entity. As with the standard redevelopment project, once the draft redevelopment agreement has been put together, it's heard by the governing body in an open meeting, and as before, if it's acceptable, it's adopted by the governing body through resolution. If it's not acceptable, it's a stop. If it's approved, then the applicant would then proceed with their normal planning board site plan process, getting their approvals. After that, they would be going for their state and local licensure. And with the local licensure, they're going to be back before the governing body at that point in time also. So again, very similar with many of the steps. Some of them are a lot more administrative review work with this than the regular redevelopment, but all the important decision points are done here by the governing body in public session. And as with, I said before, with the redevelopment, anytime there's an action to be done or a presentation, it'll be done during the discussion time rather than a consent agenda item.
I have a question about authorized escrow agreement. What is that based on? How much the project is going to cost? Or how do they come up with the escrow agreement?
The agreement is to cover the township's cost for basically developing the redevelopment agreement itself.
So depending upon the size of the project, is there a set fee?
It could be, depending on the size of the project, how complex it's anticipated. It's typically, even if it's set at like a $15,000 escrow, it's set up with provisions that says if the balance ever drops to say $5,000, that they have to replenish it to 10. It's to cover all the township costs. The initial post could be 10, 15, 20,000, depending on how, you know, a small building that isn't real complicated is different than a, 100,000 square foot warehouse grow facility. So.
Okay, now when we go through and agree on the escrow agreement, then it would go to say you for the redevelopment agreement. You would then be employed.
It would.
Yeah.
They would be paying for your
Yes,
costs.
they pay for us, they pay if you have an engineer that's looking at it early on. Whatever other out-of-pocket cost the township has, it's intended to cover that.
Okay, so we're not paying for them to come and do this process. They're putting the money out in advance.
Correct.
So that,
Both of the processes, regular redevelopment and this, that's the whole point of that escrow.
okay.
And just the disclaimer on this one.
Yes.
It's already on.
We didn't say it. I know we said it on the redevelopment.
Yes.
I just want to make sure it's on the cannabis.
Wrong copy.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
thank
right. And actually, I did catch one slight error in box number 1. Where it says request for quotes, that should be request for qualification. So we're going to be fine tuning it anyway.
Okay, that's fine.
Typo too. There was another typo artifact somewhere?
Yeah. Oh, no. I know, I heard Jim asking,
Yes.
what's artifacts?
Green, yes.
I think that's a term that was put in here because the artifact is basically that there's going to be a document. The document being the resolution authorizing the escrow agreement, there's going to be the redevelopment agreement itself, which is going to be the document, so that's what, I guess, in the terms of was developed, that would be the steps, or the item to designate it.
Any other questions?
Do you think that this scheme of accepting a project and going to its finality will be encouraging for developers or discouraging?
It will, my experience is that going through the redevelopment process is absolutely encouraging to developers.
Okay.
And the reason is, if there's agreement, if the township wants the project, then there is more of a certainty for a developer to go through the process. And think of it this way, if you don't go redevelopment and you just come in for a site plan, okay? Your process is you submit a plan. In a few weeks, you get a 10-page letter from the engineer and the township planner telling you all the things that are wrong with your plan. And you take them back, and then you go and make revisions. And then you send them back. And then you get another 5-page letter from the planner or the engineer telling you what things still need to be changed. There's not, the planning board process is not set up to be a collaborative process. It works, but it's not set up that way. In redevelopment projects, where projects are in an area where it's a more difficult project, where it's a bigger project, it lets that collaboration happen so that a developer knows early on if their project has any legs to it. It's very encouraging. It's why you see it happening in a lot of places, a lot of different projects, being used on warehouse projects now. It's just being used in things that, like, you told me 10 years ago it was being used that way. I never thought that was possible.
I had the occasion to speak to someone in planning in EHT, and they were doing workshops every 15 minutes for people who not going through redevelopment, but going through the regular process.
Okay.
And
They do a lot of redevelopment too.
yeah,
A lot.
if they want to move it over to redevelopment, I guess they do. But that's not what I was understanding. The person that I spoke to said they want people to come in and start paying taxes. And under redevelopment, okay, there is that tax abatement, which makes it also attractive for redevelopers. But if you're looking for development to add to our tax revenues, you don't get it immediately with redevelopment.
A redevelopment project only gets an abatement if you give them an abatement. The governing body, to get a long-term pilot, like EHT has a lot of them, if they're gonna get a long-term pilot, this governing body has to adopt an ordinance that gives that project that abatement, okay? They don't automatically get it.
Oh, I thought that was part of the draw.
It is available, but only if the governing body gives it to them.
Okay.
Okay? It gives you the authority to do it, but it doesn't say you have to do it.
And they never stop paying the taxes that are already there. You only get abated on taxes on improvements,
On the increase in the, on the
increase
value.
in value.
New money, basically, yes.
And whatever the length of time is, those taxes, they all come to the township. It doesn't get divvied up to the other entities, correct?
Correct.
So it makes it a little bit more,
That's where a lot of people get confused with abatements, as if we're not getting any taxes. We're actually, in the long run, getting more.
Well, I've done some research on that, and since 2018, the amount of taxes from redevelopment has been very small. So,
any other questions? Mr. Link? Did we answer all your questions? You don't have anything?
Thanks, Carl. Mr. Mayor, Committee, yeah, no, I have many more anxieties after hearing what I just heard. Having been on the planning board for almost 10 years, and most of that time as the chairman of the planning board, I've come to know and learn and taken formal courses by the New Jersey Planning Organization about good planning. And I'm going to cut to the chase. This is not good planning. You're taking the civil consideration out of this whole thing. There's nobody injected in here from the general public like you have on a planning board or if you have on a zoning board of adjustment. Nobody, because everything comes back to township committee. Now, you know, I appreciate the centralized idea of township committee because decisions have to be made and you guys got to make the tough decisions. I appreciate that. But to take the planning board, I mean, just wrench it right out of the process, and the zoning board of adjustment, because guess what? When you're redeveloping something, you're probably doing it in something in a zoning, according to the master plan and the MLUL, all right, the master land use law of the state of New Jersey, is going to usually need a variance. Okay? Otherwise, they would come to the planning board where no variance is an approved use, it's ready to go. Okay? Now, I get it. We want to get developers in here, give them a fast track. Well, frankly, so do developers. Man, they want the fastest track they can get, and you're giving it to them. Okay? And there's no guarantee that the redevelopment is going to be any good. I mean, I just direct your attention to the fiasco that happened up in, near Drosera, between Drosera and Wrangleboro. That was awful. And you know what? You and that developer put all kinds of people into all kinds of anxiety that wasn't required. That was done, and people were concerned about what that huge development under redevelopment was going to do to the value of their property that they bought many years before, thinking that, we got a bunch of trees here. This is great. It's R5. The closest neighbor we'll have is like 5 acres away. No. What you're doing with this, you know, making the entire township eligible, okay, or deemed in necessity of redevelopment means my property is in need of redevelopment. And I take exception to that. Certainly not. I love my property. I think it's in great shape. And I'll bet you my neighbors do too. But if someone comes in with enough money, who knows what's going to be in my backyard? Oh, no. Number one. Number two, as far as the master plan is concerned, is there a redevelopment element in the master plan? Like there's a transportation element, there's an education element, there's a recreation element, right? Is there a redevelopment element in the master plan? Because if there is, then the idea that the application that you may be looking at fits within the master plan goes right out the window because it's part of the master plan, right? There's no arguments. There's no impediment when that argument is used, okay? So the basic premise by which you are, deliberating with this subcommittee is just totally flawed, has absolutely no basis in good planning. I don't care what the state says, okay? They're allowing people to do this. Well, that's great, but do it properly. Don't do it for every single piece of property in the township. That's ludicrous. Do it and define, like the master plan said, when you do your reexamination reports that I've been privy to a number of times, that you look at those areas that may be in need in the future of redevelopment. Like areas that have sidewalks, curbs, has got some kind of infrastructure associated with it, or an area, a lot that hasn't been, nothing's going on for a number of years. Determine that up front instead of saying, oh, we're going to open the whole township up to all redevelopers or the developers that come in here and just rape everybody. It's not right. And you know, excuse me, and you know
Public comment.
that happened with the nonsense that cost a committeeman his seat up there, okay? And there were a lot of people, even in this room, who are really concerned about that. And that's because, in my opinion, there weren't enough checks and balances in that process. I mean, that's all, but I really would consider, ask you guys to consider, don't even go here, okay? Go back to the premise. Go back to the foundation of good planning. Don't just say out of hand that the entire township is in need of refurbishment or rehabilitation. Egg Harbor Township doesn't do it. Galloway Township doesn't do it. Sorry, they don't do the whole township. They do it by lot. Thank you.
Galloway is a rehabilitation area.
Yeah, but not EH2.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I've been a member of the zoning board, planning board, for many years. I agree 100% with everything Mr. Link just said. Okay, so I don't have to repeat that part. I'm interested in a few other things. You've got a lot of steps here, 20-some steps. I'm interested in, if you go ahead and do this, transparency and accountability. These flow charts on both, are you going to adopt whatever process you have, or are you going to codify it as an ordinance in the code book, including the checklists, the scoring thing you have? How are you going to establish the committees? You've got all kinds of subcommittees. Is this going to be the committees that are appointed at reorg by the committee or the mayor? Or are there going to be agendas and minutes so that anyone can submit it over to see the process? So there's a lot more than just, having the subcommittees, the meetings, and not being transparent. People need to be able to trace and see, and for accountability. The other thing that I noticed is the authorized escrow agreement. Okay, this is on in B8C, which tells me that,
This is for cannabis.
well, yeah, I'm looking at the cannabis, but I don't have the other one. But
Still in
where
vote.
is the escrow agreement on the redevelopment? Is that somewhere?
Right there, 3C.
Really? My point is, if you're going to go all the way through the process before you get any professionals involved, because the professionals are the ones who are paid with the escrow agreement, the escrow funds. So how do you go?
Well, that's for cannabis.
Okay, well,
So
where-
all of that, all of everything that you see there is all just to get to that resolution for us to approve it, so they can go to the state.
Okay, well, my point
And
is,
then-
when all of
No,
these
you have them go to the state before
subcommittees,
that.
you're going through this whole process without any professional input between an engineer,
Thanks
planner,
for state.
traffic engineer, landscape architect, and all of them. So, and then that's what people that serve on the planning board and zoning board normally, okay? But you're making these decisions without the
Yeah.
benefit of the professional staff that we have, that know the laws, and they know the township, most of all, okay? We have very good professionals on both the planning and zoning board.
No
I
doubt.
know them for a long time, I think you guys know them too, but you're going to make these decisions without the input or see any kind of a site plan or anything.
Mr. Malley, can you,
Just to clarify, on cannabis, a first step that they need, and the step that you see on the review. The step, okay. The cannabis, the first step that they get at the end of, well, I don't know what step it is. At the end of the second column, kind of midway through the second column, is an endorsement from the governing body, okay? So the state licensing of cannabis operators requires a town to adopt a resolution to say, this cannabis use is permitted in this zone at that property, okay? And that's the extent of the approval. If they get their license from the state, their conditional license, then they come back and the review then begins with the township that goes into everything you're just discussing right now. It goes into the specifics of the site plan and the project. The initial, that first column and a half, is just for the town to say, we approve of this use in that property, it's permitted, okay? Go get your conditional license. And then when they come back, that's when the nitty-gritty starts of, okay, I got my golden ticket now, let's talk about how I can build this, what I can do, what's the
if they don't get their
traffic,
license from
all
the
that.
state, then we would be wasting our time too,
Right.
and our
There's
time
no
is
point
money.
doing all that ahead of time. Okay?
Are we answering your question?
I'm going to go back to what Mr. Lane said. The process in this township for many, many years has worked. Okay? What you're doing is you're cutting the zoning board. And that's not fair. Okay? You're taking the master plan that you talked about, the zoning that you talked about. You take all of the stuff and you take it, and now, Mr. Chief, I beg to differ, but you're wrong about your discussion about it's a waste of time to go to the zoning board.
I didn't say it was a waste of time.
Well, you said it was a waste of money, okay?
No, I did not. If
Well-
it's an approved use and it fits all the criteria, why go through the ringer?
If, you are absolutely right, okay?
Yeah, that's what I
You don't
said.
go to the if everything is if everything is in line, you go right to the planning board, okay?
Yes.
You don't go to the zoning board, okay? The only time you go to the zoning board if it's not a permitted
Exactly.
use, okay?
Exactly.
So when you, I'll just say once again, I agree with everything Mr. Lynn said. I think this is convoluted. It's very confusing. Nobody understands this. And I think it is just an effort to short circuit the whole planning process in the whole township, and nobody understands it. And, well, I don't understand it. Okay, maybe everybody else does. Maybe I'm the only one. But this is not good for this township.
I will say one thing. I know it got brought up about, and I'll say it, Trophy Park. And I'll say again that it might have taken a little bit of time, and it may have gotten a little testy, but the process worked. Maybe some people up here on the dais had to push for some things, but ultimately the process worked. I don't know why you're shaking your head no, because I don't see them here. That process worked. And I think this redevelopment process now lays things out. We saw what issues that did bring to light. And we make this process makes it much more transparent. I hear what you're saying about you're saying that you're cutting the zoning board out, and those members of the zoning board are members of the public. Well, last I checked, I'm a member of the public. And not only am I a member of the public, but I was voted in by the public, where zoning board members are appointed by us up here. So I think the public has more of a choice on who's sitting up here than they do of who's sitting on the zoning board. So from that angle, I'm not saying that the zoning board should be removed. What I'm saying is, we're also sitting up here, there's 5 of us sitting up here also. And, we're not just 5 people that don't know anything. And I'm not taking anything away from the zoning board members either. So it's just a different way of getting a project moved through, possibly, hopefully quicker. And in no way hiding anything from anybody in the public. And like I said in another meeting before, these meetings are televised. There's more people at these meetings than I've ever seen at a zoning board meeting. I think if things go through in front of us, more people are going to hear about it, more people are going to see it. There's more information that is available. You can log on and you can watch meetings from how many years ago? I have no idea how many years you can go back and watch these meetings, and they'll always be there. Whereas zoning board, you're going to have to pull out their minutes and read the minutes and see where they were with, in their minutes and how they voted.
I would like to comment. Mr. Stride mentioned that no one knows the planning and whatnot. I'm fortunate, I've been a member over 15 years of the planning board. No one ever comes to a planning board meeting unless they have a gripe. If you don't understand how the planning board works, please come to a meeting. It's open to you. If you're concerned how it works and you want to learn how it works, please come to a meeting. No one ever comes. How do you expect to know how the planning board works when you never come to a meeting? That's all.
Mayor, I agree with what you're saying here, but, and I think that we've had a time, before I came back on this board, that a project came up, and for whatever reason, it was rushed, it was pushed forward. If you take a good look at what we have here, that project didn't get past step 4. Stopped, right there, 4. Okay, so when it gets to a escrow agreement, it doesn't mean anything other than it's their chance to do a fact-finding mission with their money, not ours, with their money. If you look further down, there are several other places where any project that comes before us can stop. When I came on this board, it came up to extend their, I'll use the dirty word, MOU. It was shot down. There was multiple reasons why it was shot down. This is why we have these points in this process to say, no, this is not a good idea. It doesn't fit. It's not worthwhile. It's not in the right place. I don't think anybody in this room would argue that Trophy Park wasn't a good project. It's where it was. That was the bad part. Trophy Park, if you develop it, is a game changer for a town like ours. A town that is basically a retail town, and I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but retail stores aren't doing so good anymore. But where Trophy Park and where he wanted to build it would not work. It didn't just work for the folks in the audience that got all upset. It did not work for a lot of reasons. The Pinelands would have never let it work. There was sewer issues, there were water issues, there was all kinds of issues with this. So when Carl says, and I've said before that the process worked, it got to this point, this man had 180 days to bring us anything that resembled movement, and he didn't. And I felt bad because a lot of people got upset about this because the process at the time was so confusing and so clouded that a lot of people got upset about it. But there were things in place, even though it's not as we're showing it here, they were still there. These processes were still here. because that's how it needs to be done. You cannot just let a developer come in here and tell us what to do. That's not how it works here. When I came back, I heard all about how it didn't come before Township Committee. The MOU got approved on a consent agenda. That's never going to happen again. Every project that comes to this town, before it becomes anything, will become before this committee and the public. No matter what side of the aisle we sit on, we were voted in by the majority of the people that year. But once you sit up here, you represent all the people in all the areas of Hamilton Township. So we are not going to allow somebody to come in here and tell us that they're going to put this wherever they want. And that's basically what that gentleman did, and that gentleman got very nicely told, you can't put it here. You're welcome to stay, but you got to put it someplace else. And if it's another town, it's another town. In the time that I've sat up here as a committeeman and mayor, I have seen projects come and projects go. And a lot of them would have been very good for this township, but not good for this township. Maybe good financially, but not good for the township as a whole. And I myself, I can't speak for anybody else, I myself would not allow it. So I feel as though that this is the best that we can make this. There are multiple places where it's exposed to the public. I believe it goes to the planning board. They check it against the master plan, and they advise us. We have been through this process before, and when the planning board comes back and says, we don't think this is a good idea, we pretty much go along with the planning board. We put those people in those seats, and we're not going to listen to what they tell us. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I got to tell you that I am, and have been since I've sat up here some 5 years ago, very proud of our planning and zoning boards. They do an excellent job. Harry Balicki, during the course of putting this together, did a fantastic job. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever been around, and he did a great job, put a lot of thought into this. And Elaine Valentino, also from the zoning board, did a fantastic job. And their concerns, like ours, were about you. How do we grow this town and still be able to do something like this? We have to protect ourselves. So it's extremely important who you put up here on this dais, have you seen before. And I watched this town rise up and take care of business. It was impressive. But this, right here, is as transparent as it gets. You want to know if we're going to have Oprah? I can't tell you that. I don't know if these documents are Oprahable, but we'll find out. All these questions that I heard are good questions. This is just the first piece of this. This is how we want to move forward. And everybody in the room has a lot of experience, including Mr. Malley, who's been doing this longer than all of us, and knows what other towns have done and how they run their business, agree that this is a good way to move forward. We passed this ordinance in 2018, and here we are 5 years later, changing it. We've changed it in 2001, we changed it in 2019. This is a growing document. This is the same words I used when I was here in 2018 when we passed this. You learn from what happens. It's really that simple. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody. So I think this is a very good step to get us where we need to be. This is not the only step. And yes, this will be part of the ordinance, because when I left here before, it wasn't, and it got ignored. That's not happening again. Thank you, Mayor.
I think all of us have a say, as well as whether this is acceptable. I have been here on the dais longer than you have, and I have seen things come and go, and I am no stranger to this whole situation. And as it was explained to me, that in the case of Mr. Now, he wanted to buy a piece of property that was cheap. And his ideas were outrageous. And he wanted to put the zoning at risk, all the people at risk that would be near this project. So, yes, did it work? I think it worked at getting someone who really had no business coming here to begin with, and that they saw an opportunity to buy cheap land in zones that we have kept because of our dedication to the Pinelands, to the people who bought their property at 5 acres per house, 20 acres per house. Now we're going to tell them in these various zones. Now, we have a project that we think, even though it's an expensive land, that this would be something that would be great for Hamilton Township, such as warehousing. Let's go to warehouses in the R20 zone or the R70 zone. Let's do that. It would help us. But we have enough land that can be developed now without going through a redevelopment. And I think this attracts people or developers who want to do what they want to. And I know there's various steps that we presented, but it still is not a good ordinance. Going back to 2018 and making all of Hamilton Township under redevelopment and rehabilitation. It just, how did we get to 2018 before this came? We did the traditional planning, zoning, and we have a great community. I don't want to see it changed. And I do have confidence with our 5 people up here, but that's not to say that we will always be that 5 people. And now we've given them the power to do what they want to do. So that's my feeling.
All right, so what we're looking to do here, and that is a good question that Mr. Scribe brought up with this subcommittee. I guess we need to look into that and see if that's something where they would have to keep minutes. Off the top of my head, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't think so, but it's something maybe to look into and discuss a little bit. So what I'm looking for here is a motion to go ahead and move this forward for Phil and Brett to amend the ordinances.
To what?
I'll motion.
To add our development processes, and whatever other issues were brought up by the subcommittee.
Eliminating the disclaimer.
And eliminate, yeah, without that disclaimer on both of them.
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
Ayes have it. So Phil, Brett, you got your marching orders?
Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on. Discussion regarding the sale of the former MUA building on Ken Skull Avenue. Brett, you want to
We had
go over this?
We had a public land sale a few weeks back for the former MUA building on Ken Skull. The minimum bid was set at $190,000. We did not receive any bids. We are bringing it back to committee to talk about the minimum bid, possibly lower it. That's your pleasure. Say it over.
What's that?
Okay.
Can you repeat what you said?
Sure. We had a public land sale a few weeks back for the former MUA building on Ken Skull. The public auction, did not result in any bids. The minimum bid for that auction was $190,000. We wanted to bring it back to Township Committee to discuss the minimum bid price. Possibly lower it, leave it the same. That's up to you. That's your pleasure.
I think we try one more time and lower the price. What's everybody think?
What if the same thing happens? Because there's a lot of issues that was brought publicly before this township, like the roof and, different things that's wrong with the building. So what if no one bids on it after we lower it? Then what do we do?
At $190,000, it's a pretty good investment for somebody that wants to come in and renovate the building and use it for commercial or use it for, if they want to go through and change the zoning back to residential, they could possibly do that. If you lower the price down, that just makes it even more appealing to somebody.
Yeah, I'm not against the lowering. I'm saying what will happen if we agree to lower the price and nobody bids on it.
I think the other option is possibly getting a marketing agent to go and market it, but that's going to cost us money. So we're trying not to do that.
Right, that was my question, because it doesn't have a generator, it needs a roof, the bathroom, the floors are bad, so people are, well, I mean, this was said before, it was said publicly. I mean, it's been said before.
We took the price down on that
But
basis.
it's location. It's
We
right in the
took
center of
price
town.
down on that
I'm sorry,
basis.
I was just
It was
saying,
newly renovated in 1983, come on.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, okay.
Got to market it the right
No,
way.
you're-
We gotta market it, all right, I shouldn't have said all, but it was publicly said before, I mean, it's on record.
Yeah, but that's why the price came down. What was the original price that
Do
we,
something.
to,
190.
no, the
The
original
originally
price,
was
before we
almost-
take into the account of the roof, the bathroom. I've been there, I don't think it's that,
Well, there was some people that said it was worth $600,000, but they live in this town and they didn't come down offering 190.
no, but the appraised price, what was that? 230,000, 240? And then we analyzed what had to be done, and we came back down with the price of 190.
All right, I agree with that. I wasn't against it. I was just making a point, asking the question. If we lower it, which we probably will, and no one bids on it, what would we do next? That was basically what I was trying to say.
We discussed hiring a marketing firm or a realtor to advertise it, and then we would still have to sell it at a public sale.
Okay,
We would just hire them to market the building, but that's going to cost money. So we wanted to try to lower the price, have another public sale, and see what happens.
all right.
So interest rates aren't going any lower anytime soon, which is not helping our cause. I would entertain $175,000, and if that doesn't work, we go into a marketing stance.
You're saying go down to 175? Is that your
That-
recommendation?
That's what Arch has suggested.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
how can you agree with everything that says?
Okay. We just need a motion, and we just need a
It's not-
motion.
Listen, this building's costing us money every month that goes by, so.
It's costing us money right now.
175?
I'll motion 175.
I have a motion for 175. Do I hear a second?
Make sure you get the, who was that?
So he could buy it at 175.
I'll second it if it, well, it already was, but, you know, just throw my name in there too.
I will.
We need a roll call vote on that?
Yes, and I'm going by the resolution that was in your packet. The only thing missing was the amount, so that's the resolution you're voting on.
Okay.
It's three,
Yeah,
three big. There's
it's the next page after the agenda sheet.
Oh,
So it's just, your
It's
it's our
basically the same
standard.
one that we already had for the 190,
exact- it's-
so
yes.
we're just loaning it to 175.
Right.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank
by the
you.
way. Appreciate your support.
4A, public hearing, ordinance 2046-2023, an ordinance authorizing the sale of Lot 1
just let this,
in Block 600 as shown on the tax map of the Township of Hamilton, and granting to the owner or owners of said real property contiguous to same the right to prior refusal to purchase such land in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public wish to speak? No, this is for this.
Motion to close?
Second?
Motion to second. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it.
but you had to call.
Do I
roll
hear a
call.
motion?
Don't you have to call roll call on that?
Yeah, that should be a roll call.
No, they're
No, that
just
was the
closing the
close, that
public
was the
hearing.
close the
Yeah.
public comment.
Apologies.
Oh,
Come on, Kevin,
Make a
come on now.
motion to move ordinance 2046-2023.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
4B, ordinance 2047-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 167 of the Township Code to provide for or amend the fees for certain land development applications. It's a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to speak?
I'll motion
No one?
again.
There you go.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public comment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Do I hear a motion moving 4B?
So move.
Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Public hearing ordinance 2048-2023, bond ordinance appropriating $500,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund for various capital improvements to township facilities, purchase of public safety equipment, and purchase of a new retrofit ambulance. This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to speak? I see nobody.
Motion to
Close.
close.
second,
Give
I
it
have
to
a-
Art. Give it to Art.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it.
Motion to move ordinance 2048-2023.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
5A, introduction, ordinance 2049-2023, an ordinance of the Township Committee, the Township of Hamilton, and the County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, prohibiting the release of balloons. Do I hear a motion?
Move the introduction, 2049-2023.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Man, we're flying now.
Oh, now you did it.
8:15, come on.
Yeah. Come on.
I didn't have dinner yet. 6A, resolution to retain the legal services of Robert Bucknam, Jr. of Archer and Grainer as special counsel, eminent domain matters, and authorize the mayor to sign the same $200 not to exceed $10,000.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
No.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
6B, award bid 2023-02-2022 Road Improvement Program Phase 2 to Arawak Paving Company Incorporated in the amount of $371,800. This is for Liberty, Nelson, and Oliver Avenues and Crocus Street.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
6C, award bid 2023-03 Atlantic Avenue Phase 2 roadway to Arawak Paving Company Incorporated in the amount of $506,900. And this takes us from the post office general area to Summers Point Road.
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali? All
Yes.
yes and carried.
6D, award bid 2023-04 Atlantic Avenue Phase 3 roadway to Arawak Paving Company Incorporated in the amount of $222,700. And this is the other end of Atlantic Avenue. So when these two projects are done, Atlantic Avenue will be completely repaved over the last 3 years, 4 years. So we should be good for a while.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Award, 6E, award bid 2023-06, 2023 municipal aid, New York Avenue, Phase 5, to Arawak Paving Company Incorporated, in the amount of $241,800.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
This went out to bid?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to move anything? Does anybody want to pull anything?
I would just like to pull N.
N?
Yes.
Late list item.
Late list.
Oh. Thank you. Oh.
So you want to make a motion for 7A through M?
Yes. I'll motion.
You have a motion for 7A through M. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Pull out. Okay, sir.
7N, I just want to make sure that with this application last year, he has a certain time, that the time has not changed of his operating hours.
Limitation upon the hours of operation and sale of alcoholic beverages at the establishment to only until 12 a.m. for all 7 days of the week.
And that's how it was before?
Correct.
So,
They're
yes.
the identical to the last time.
Identical?
We're just
Okay, that's
continuing
all.
it on.
Yeah, that's all, that's fine.
Very good.
I'll motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Moving on, personnel. 8A, hiring a Township of Hamilton Fire Administrator.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
8B, resolution to promote Adam Burke from Equipment Operator Level 1 to Equipment Operator Level 2, effective 4/14/2023.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
8C, resolution to appoint Cove staff for the 2023 season, June 17th through September 4th. Hire Kevin Longo, beach badge checker, $14.13 per hour.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
And carried.
8D, resolution to appoint Brolin Moradel Cruz as a full-time regular laborer at $35,695.84 annually, effective date to be determined. Employment contingent upon successful completion of physical, drug screen, and background check.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
8E, resolution to appoint Jamil Epps as full-time regular laborer at $35,695.84 annually, effective date to be determined. Employment contingent upon successful completion of physical, drug screen, and background check.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
8F, resolution to hire Kevin Joseph Lieb as a full-time regular laborer at $35,695.84 annually, effective date to be determined. Employment contingent upon successful completion of physical, drug screen, and background check.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Approvals, minutes, regular meeting minutes of June 5th, 2023.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, against? Ayes have it. Minutes, executive session meeting minutes of June 5th, 2023.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Bills, bill list total $978,980.79.
It's under $1 million. I'm in. I motion.
Second.
Nice. I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Reports. Mr. Administrator, what do you got for us?
We were notified today by Green Acres that the township secured the additional $700,000 in Green Acres low-interest funding for the Leap Track Park. That puts us at $1.3 million that we can spend at 2% interest for when we have to fund when we have to start paying for the project out there.
Can you say that a little louder? I can't hear you.
Still can't hear me? Okay. We got the additional $700,000 for the Levy Track Park from Green Acres. We were notified today.
Okay.
That gives us the 2% interest loan.
Okay.
We add that to the original $600,000, and we're at $1.3 million of low-interest money for that project.
It's great.
Okay. At 2%.
Yes.
Percent for the life of the loop.
The other thing I wanted to update the committee, I got a phone call today from Jeff Day. He's the redeveloper for the landfill. He just wanted me to make mention that his company secured and sourced the 100,000 tons of clean fill dirt to cap the landfill. So that was a huge accomplishment for them to secure that kind of material at the spec that they needed for that project. So He's going to be presenting an update at the July 17th meeting. So he's going to come in and update the committee on his progress.
Excellent,
That's all I have.
excellent. Mr. Solicitor?
The township solicitor has no report this evening. Thank you, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right. Mr. Engineer?
Thank you, Mayor. I did provide you with a copy of our hot topics list. It was more of a breakdown of all the road improvement bids. If there was any questions in regards to them, I'm happy to answer them. I didn't really want to run through them again. There was a couple small updates on some of the projects. Leapy Recreational Field concession stands. We did receive the final plans from the architect for the rebid of that project. So we anticipate in the next 2 weeks we can have that out to bid, and hopefully the bid date would be late August. And that would also have the separate contract for the parking lot reconstruction as well. So we'll have 2 different contracts there. The other highlights was the annual stormwater report was submitted back in early June, and they've accepted it, so that is up to date. We also are still in the works of our road opening ordinance being finalized between our office, the building, and the clerk's office as well. And we have sent out another email to the Hamilton Mall in regards to their stormwater basin maintenance. That was sent out yesterday, and we have not received anything back yet from their maintenance department. As you may have driven by, nothing has been done as well, so we're still withholding their bond at this point. And if anybody else has any questions?
Our bids for the paving.
Yes.
How much under budget did they come in?
I will go through them real quick then. So the road program was about 13.5% below our estimate. That is for the Crocus, Oliver, Liberty, and Nelson. The Atlantic Avenue, Phase 2, was 6.5% under our estimate. From 542,000, we estimated it was 506,900. Local freight, which is from the jail to Babcock, that came in very low. We estimated around 298,000. It came in at 223,000 almost. And the New York Avenue, we estimated it at 290,000. 93,000, it came in at 241, so 17.5%. So the bids were very, aggressive, I think, with these paving companies, and it's a good thing. We do have grant money for all 3 of the state aids, and we may be able to use the extra grant money left over for, additional paving if we can extend it for the state aids. So
Very good, thank you.
Overall, very good.
Very good. Township committee members. Dr. Witherspoon.
Yes. I participated in the procession of First Class Private Harry Hartman Jr. From the beginning to the ceremony. It was one that I've never seen with full military honor. I've always been to something where there's been 1 or 2, but to see that it was very huge for the township. I'm sure that the family was happy, the way that the services went from the military, and to see the support from the residents that came out and stood on the streets to pay tribute and honor. I thought that was something great, and I was glad to be a part of that history. 72 years, it was a long time, but thank God he's finally home and at a final resting place. Also, we had another Mays Landing resident who passed away, Ed Klopp, and I worked with him. He loved Mays Landing. Maybe he didn't come to the meetings, but he always watched us on the television, and that was a very, very hard hit for all of the co-workers and so for a lot of the residents. So certainly My condolences was to the family. I wish I gave them my condolences, but I just wanted to say that he was just a great person. And let's keep that family in prayers, because it's hard to lose somebody and to bury him right before Father's Day. I attended the ACIT expansion groundbreaking ceremony. That was very nice, too. It was hot, but it was a $53.5 million project. $40 million they got from a competitive grant, and the rest of the money came from the county. They said not taxpayers' dollars, but I don't know how they did it, but they did it. They did it, so I did attend that. And then I attended the Juneteenth celebration on Saturday in Mizpah, and that was very nice as well. And that is my report.
Can you ask them where that non-taxpayer money is? Like, I'd like to
Well,
hit-
that's
I'd like to
something
hit that
well,
up.
I
don't know.
saw, I saw the county exec, he was on the, I guess, the press, internet news, and he was saying how they didn't have no tax increases. So I didn't get a chance to read that entire article, but I will go back and read it and find out how.
Mr. Schenker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too attended Private Harry Hartman's funeral, and you know, I just want to basically say the same thing that Thelma did. It was very moving. It was very nice, and the only thing I can say now is welcome home, Harry. Also attended the Juneteenth out in Mizpah. It was very nice. A lot of nice people out there. A lot of little girls out there that were selling bracelets and stuff like that. Our young entrepreneurs of the world. But it was very nice. It was, they were very welcoming, and I think maybe next year we can try and get them in the All Wars Park to have that celebration. So we'll work on that with them. My other thing is just, I want to thank Harry Balicki and Elaine Valentino. Harry is the president or the chairman of the planning board. Elaine Valentino is the chairman of the zoning board, and both of them spent a lot of time and effort, along with Judy and I on the committee, and the members of the township, that we came up with what they feel is a good plan to move forward with, and I just want to thank them for their efforts and for their time, and I hope that this will help things make things a little bit better. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Link?
I have to remind everyone about the hometown celebration. It's on the 24th. There is supposed to be showers or whatever, but everyone, bring your umbrella and come out to your hometown celebration. It will be really worthwhile. And I am still feeling that our amendment or our ordinance in 2018 was an overreach of our community, and I would at some point like to see us go back to how we originally done business in Hamilton Township. I do say that it was a lot of work on the subcommittee. We did go back and forth as to how to proceed, but I still think that scheme will be rather cumbersome to people who want to get involved in cannabis and in redevelopment. That's my own opinion. Hopefully it will make it more public, and that's the end goal of that subcommittee. And that is it. That's it.
Thank you, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, can I just ask a question? In the event that it's more than rain, it's a thunderstorm, because they're projecting thunderstorms on Saturday, Will we reschedule the hometown?
That I don't know. I don't know, Greg, do you know? I don't know. I'm sorry. I did not attend the last Merchant Association meeting, so. Okay, so if it's raining and it gets canceled, it's canceled. Okay.
Oh, I have something to add. Even though I wasn't able to go to the Harry Hartman ceremony at the Graves site, I did meet with Todd Mick and Jeff Mick, who were part of that family through Todd Mick's wife. Her uncle was her father was Harry Hartman's brother. So it was good to see that, and through much work through our Veterans Advisory Committee, Al Davenport, Bob Campbell, this came to fruition. So thanks to them as well. Thank you.
Mr. Cheek?
Thank you, Mayor. I myself, as well as everyone else, attended the Harry Hartman ceremony and whatnot, and it was quite nice, and to see that many American flags was awfully nice at the park. And again, as far as everyone else, the hometown celebration is June 24th. Hopefully the weather permits it and we see everyone there. And that's it for me.
Very good. Yes, I was at the Harry Hartman funeral and the procession, quite moving. The cannons and all that, it was impressive, and glad that he's home. That's really, really good. Bring some closure to that family. I want to give kudos to our police department. They got, how many guns off the street, Chief?
2 this last week.
2 guns off the street, arrested 4, still looking for 1, and this was a group of individuals that were going on Facebook Marketplace and saying they had a car to sell, and then when they met the person somewhere, they would rob them. And hard work by our police department, they were able to track them down and take care of that. So kudos to you guys. I mean, that's awesome to know that 2 more illegal guns are off the street, and makes us just that much safer. Of course, like everybody said, hometown celebration this weekend, 10 to 4 at War Memorial Park. Don't forget, coming up also is National Night Out. That is Tuesday the 1st, August. Fireworks again this year. Last year was phenomenal, and I think it's going to be bigger and better this year. From what I understand, donations are coming in. So also, if you'd like to donate towards that, please do. And that's all I have. Reagan, I'll see you later. Maddie, I miss you, love you, and I hope to see you soon. So we will open it up to the public. Everybody, raising hands. First one, she got up first, so. Oh, I'm sorry, Debbie, you're up there standing. But she jumped up. I couldn't. What am I going to do?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Marita Gardaki. I live at 62 Keller in Woods Landing. And I first would like to thank you very much for making sure that the storm drain on Upper Keller was fixed. No longer can a grown man fall through it. I really appreciate that. I would like to point out that a wise person once told me, if you want to know what's going on, ask questions. So I have a list, and I have my paperwork to back it up.
And we are ready for your questions.
Okay, I hope so, because I'm ready for your answers, sir. And I mean that.
You might not like our answers, but we're ready.
And I mean that respectfully. They just closed the last house on Phase 5.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow's June 21st. And Mrs. Link had held them to a standard of, we need our roads by June 21st, and we have no roads.
Mm-hmm.
We have no schedule.
So.
You know anything about our roads?
So we actually had a meeting this morning, myself, Brett, and Bob Smith, the engineer. He spoke with their attorney. So he's setting up, trying to set up another meeting with them. Obviously, the roads are not going to get paved by, I was told the end of June. Either way, the 21st or the end of June, it's not happening. So we're trying to hold their feet to the fire and get that done. I know that's the biggest thing, and that's what we're pushing very hard for, is to at least get that paved out for you guys.
Yes, because we are very concerned, and I'm here not as a board member, I'm here as an individual taxpayer. That needs to be on the record. But when a lot of us talk, we're all very concerned that he's going to book.
Well, he can't,
We're
he
going to
can't,
be left holding the bag.
can't book.
You can't,
Okay, well, I'm praying that you have.
If he books, he's going to leave a lot of money behind, so we can, then things take a different turn.
Yeah, but there were no
But-
escalators in any of the bonds, so it won't really make that much of a dent in what he needs to finish. And I have a question. I think, Mr. Knoll, you were supposed to find this out. How many changes has the engineer made without administrative approval?
Changes without administrative approval? I can find out for you.
I would appreciate that. Now, unfortunately, this falls on your administration, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for that because it just gets dumped in your lap, but heavy is the head that
I
wears
got
the
big
crown.
shoulders.
I have the original Phase 5 plans,
Okay.
and I'm assuming
Phase 5, that's Getz Way?
that's Getz and Hannum.
Okay.
I'm assuming that the new plans that were drawn up in the last couple years were based off of Phase 5. Would that be correct?
I wouldn't, I don't know. I don't want to answer that because I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out.
I was hoping maybe Mr. Cheek or Mr. Schwank might know.
I spoke with Bob Smith, especially about the bonding of the second coat of the pavement on Phase 5 for the dollar amount. Phase 5 was approved in 2008. So
Right.
they would be the drawings that were approved.
Those are the new Phase 5, the new drawings for Phase 5, because there were two Phase 5s, the original ones, and then they did a variation.
I did not see them.
Either way,
Okay.
we've been
We have
trying
it
to
in
get
common
them.
then.
You know, Oprah applies to, obviously Oprah applies to you, but not to them. On Phase 5, we have a gross lack of landscaping. No irrigation was placed. They placed islands, hydro-seeded everything. And please all come with your watering cans, because there's no irrigation. There's irrigation on the other phases on the islands. Why they even put the island in, I don't know. I was hoping maybe you'd have some explanation on that. There is a thought that they could drop some sleeves in and then put the roads in and then slide through some irrigation. But I really don't want this all to be dumped on the retired seniors, because we vote in 1 through 5. And we know 200 votes can change an election. Yes. We still don't have the sign that was promised. We're looking for that. Upper Keller. 4 out of the 5 drains are still 3/4 full. I did mention this to Mr. Knoll when he called me the other day. He was supposed to look into it after the last meeting. They're still full, isn't it?
I looked into that one. The engineer's looking at the retention basin and the infiltration area above the liner. He's working on that with the developer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I took a ride out there today, too.
Okay,
Was it-
and
was
yeah,
it above the
I know you
liner?
were checking
that?
drains.
Was the water above the liner?
I don't know exactly where that liner is, but
Okay.
I know the front pond, it didn't look like it was. Now, the one all the way back on Keller's Way,
That's the
it's
one.
behind a house, so you really can't, I didn't want to get out and go walking through somebody's yard.
That's Brian's yard, you can walk through that. That's not a problem. No, and then what happened also, they had the liner in on Upper Keller in that pond, and they put silt fence in. And when they put the silt fence in, they went through the liner every 5 feet and then just came and hacked it off. Now we're stuck with the damaged liner. Is there anything that we can do about that? And there's still a big discrepancy on who owns the ponds. No one can tell me for sure who owns these ponds. There is no paperwork that we can find designating that attorney signed off, the township signed off, that those ponds belong to HWL. When we moved in, we were giving no disclosures on it, and we were told that those ponds still belong to the builder. Now, when the person across the street sued us because a water table changed, and Mr. Furmore, Mr. Fernbach, he bought a third of the lawsuit. So if he doesn't own the ponds, why did he get tagged in the lawsuit? Yes, I am annual retentive. I admit that. It's a good thing to have. At 135 Keller, the storm drain, the grate up top, is broken into a sharp V. If somebody comes and trips over that, they're going to slice their leg off. That's how sharp it is.
What's that address?
135 Keller Way, right across the street from me. I would like to know how the bocce ball courts got passed off. Our bocce ball courts that the builder put in were unplayable. They were warped wood within a couple of weeks. It cost us $24,000 because the township engineer signed off. It cost us $24,000. And I know because I signed the checks to replace them. Why would he sign something off with warped boards that was unplayable and unusable? And please, may we please have an updated punch list at one point in time?
Talked about that
You know,
today.
the last one I think was 2021. And some of the residents from Phase 5 are very concerned because they were promised, and it's on the originals, a walking path. Now, we decided to move the walking path, and that's one of the things that the engineer decided that you didn't need administrative approval for. Decided to move the walking path to the back of the pond, which was fine. It's shorter distance, keep our elderly people off the road in case anybody veers off. It was a good safety decision among the community. It's also supposed to be lighted. We have no lights. Now, I know a lot of concessions were made, and the township was worried about their ratables, but this builder came in August 18th, 2009. He screwed the township out of a lot of money and not building until we had the big housing boom a couple years ago with COVID. You know, we lost a lot more ratables than we've made. So I have a little concern, you know, and everybody's worried about redevelopment. Well, we can't even get Little Woods Landing together. How are we going to get redevelopment together? Thank you for your time.
Just jump up.
Mr. Mayor, Township Committee, all the people that are here, thank you very much for your attention.
Just state your name for
Yes, my
reading.
name is Courtney Mutuler. I live at 218 Old River Road for 36 years. And to go up to the corner of Old River Road and 559, I have to take my life in my hands every time I try to pull out, because the traffic is just flying through there both ways. I recommend that you might want to get one of those mirrors they put at the end of the street on the telephone pole, so if you're trying to pull out, you can see the traffic coming up. Because with the fence they have at the Sugar Hill Inn, you can't see the cars coming up. And they come at 40, 50 miles an hour, so you start to pull out, you almost get hit. So it's a safety issue, and I just want to bring that up and hope we can do something about it. Thank you for your attention. God bless you.
You got it. Thanks, Courtney. Mr. Link?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Link, 676 and 753 Park Road. Real quick, I appreciate the fact that you guys let me go on, and I hope that you can overlook my enthusiasm earlier, but it's a pretty, hot topic. But more importantly, I tried my best to dissuade Judy from coming here tonight because it's our 30th wedding anniversary, and she said, no, I was elected to do a job, and I'm going to do it. So,
Congratulations.
Very nice. Very nice.
I would beg your indulgence. I don't know if you're going into executive session. If you are, try to make it as quick as possible, okay?
Jim, I didn't eat dinner yet.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, guys. I'll be quick, I promise.
You were late. You're lucky I'm letting you come up here.
That's the only reason why I'm actually coming up here. Sorry to bug you. Alice, Henry, Drosera. I was just wondering, could you guys scroll up, because I can't read that worth a darn, to be honest with you, and I wanted to see the whole thing.
We have copies we can give her?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Oh, sorry. Thank you. And that was making it very difficult for me to follow along. I apologize. Give me 2 seconds. I only have 3 questions. I'll be real quick, I promise. I don't see anything about Pinelands in here at all. And I don't know if that'll be addressed at all, where it would fall under
They
it.
can't go to planning board without.
Yeah, they can't go to planning board without the letter of
Filing.
Okay.
from the Pinelands.
So that would be in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And we really don't have anything to do with
Okay,
that, so.
I just figured I'd ask.
Absolutely.
Questions are good. And I know they were asking about zoning board. I was wondering if there's if there's a way to put that in of maybe put it in of if there's a discrepancy, where it would go a sidebar off to zoning board or something.
It won't go to zoning board.
Okay. And then I'm slightly confused about the one arrow where at 7B where it kind of circles back, to be honest.
I don't have it in front of me, so.
Sorry. It's that one up there.
Master plan?
Yeah, where it's no, and then it circles back, and it's
7B.
recommend with resolutions.
Is plan consistent with master plan? Is that what the one you're looking at?
Yeah,
Yes?
yes,
I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
sure.
So basically, the planning board's going to make a recommendation about whether it's consistent with the master plan or not. The governing body will have that recommendation, but they can proceed nonetheless, or they
Okay.
can choose to abide that recommendation. That's why it circles back.
Okay.
They get a recommendation, but it's ultimately their decision whether to move forward with that resolution recommendation.
Okay,
Because it's a recommendation from the planning board.
gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Fine.
No problem.
Sorry, I told you I'd be fast.
You're up.
Debbie Kraus, 7400 Driftwood. 2 questions. You just brought up about the Pinelands. Pinelands, if the structure is existing and it's just changing ownership, does Pinelands need to come in? If it goes from a bar to a dispensary, does Pinelands get involved? Or do they have any say in, they do? Okay. Well, yeah, it's kind of a change of use, but it's still, all right, I'm talking about highway commercial. In a highway commercial zone, it doesn't matter really if you go from a deli to a hairdresser. Would the Pinelands have anything to say about that if it went from a deli to a dispensary? I mean, really, you're not changing anything. It's still a commercial.
It all depends on the use that it's going to be.
Right.
If that property had an approval previously, the Pinelands may have already saw that, so they might not need a new certificate of filing, but they would still need a letter saying that they can move forward.
Okay.
But if the project never had a site plan approval, then it would be going in front of the Pinelands and needing a certificate of filing. And that would have to be given to the planning board prior to them being heard.
Being heard, okay.
Yep.
All right, yeah, because I know that they need the Pinelands, if you go into the building office for an addition or whatever, you have to get approval from Pinelands. Even if the house is already there, they want to see something that the Pinelands says, you know, you can move forward. Okay. The other thing, now I'm going to help you out, and I want my 10%. The MUA building, okay, you have a building there with maybe, what, 2 or 3 parking spaces? I mean, if you ever pulled up to the MUA and tried to pay your bill there, you can't park in the parking area because somebody's going to park behind you, or they park along the street, which is going to curve. Okay, so you're talking about 175,000 now? Is that what you're going to put it at? Okay, my suggestion, put it lower, start it at like 130, 135, and set a reserve. A lot of times you can set a reserve saying, if we don't make 165, 170, whatever your reserve is going to be, then the sale is off. So if people come in there thinking, I'm going to get it for 130, the reserve hasn't been met, they're not going to get it, okay? But you, starting that low, you might have a lot better shot. Banks are now well, if you are an investor, banks are going to charge you higher percentage rate to get a mortgage on the property. So most people coming in are probably going to be paying cash for that building. If you don't get anything, when you set a reserve, say you set it at 175, and you don't get that, you start at 130, and if you don't make the reserve, by the end of the year, if you haven't gotten any offers on the property that you are into, my suggestion would be for the governing body to go and change it back to a residential use, and you will get more than enough offers, which are going to go over 200,000. So that's where you're going to make your money. You're not going to make it sitting there with 2 or 3 parking spaces. You'll be much better off to change it back to a residential zone and sell it as a house. And you will have investors flocking in there. I was just at one of your land sales and set the opening price for 2 properties totaled 17,000, okay? This was just last week. And you ended up with 31,000. So keep it low and let it go high, but set your reserve. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Gardaki, 62 Keller Way, husband of the previous speaker. Didn't plan on speaking, but didn't exactly hear anything definitive of how we're going to get closure to our community.
Because I do not make anything
Let me ask
definitive.
a more specific question. Okay, the houses are sold, builder's done with the sales. We have a lot of items that need to still be finished. We have bonds in place. Can this builder just sit on those bonds and renew them for years and years and years and make us wait to get our roads done and everything else? What can the township do for your neighbors and taxpayers and voters to get closure to our community? I feel I'm not hearing anything other than we're going to have another meeting and another meeting. Mr. Fernbach is great on having lots of meetings, canceling meetings, and then having meetings. We need to get closure. So what is there any rules in place once the development is completed and the houses are sold, that there's a time limit when these bonds, either he fixes it or the bonds get executed upon? There should be a definitive time limit on this.
Yeah.
That's my question. What can you do as the township committee to make sure that we don't have another episode that we had back in the early 2000s where the builder went bankrupt, or in this case, the builder may just flee,
Kevin,
leave
can
us
you,
holding the bag?
Can you shed any light on what we can do?
I mean, I would need to look at the operative documents. Normally, in a situation like that, there's a contract and a development agreement in place, and if you determine that they're in breach, you can send them a letter saying they're in breach, and, you know, you're going to execute on that bond But I don't want to speak out of turn because I haven't even looked at those documents. I'm not even familiar with this project, to be honest with you.
Because he could just pay a small renewal fee for his bond, which is minuscule to what needs to be done.
If I could add to that.
Please.
I was very familiar with it. When they did the final paving on your street and that portion there, 3 years ago maybe,
Yes.
your firm was involved in litigation and threatening to start the bond.
That would be the next step, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it went back then.
Okay.
Well, put you on the spot. Are you prepared to do that on behalf of the residents of that community?
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. I mean, but they just finished up the one section, and obviously, you know, if we get into to getting our lawyers involved and things like, it costs money. So we're trying to get this done without it going to that extent.
And we
But
hope that you
I
can do it.
completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, like I said, I drove through there today, and if I had to drive in there every day, where, you know, obviously you're going through a section that hasn't been finished paved yet, you know, the surface course has not been on there, it would drive me, I'd be losing my mind.
14 years.
I'd be losing my mind.
14 years. And the people in there are now been there a long time, their savings are drained. The thought of having a special assessment for 5,000, maybe more, that could put people right out of those homes. You could have a lot of boarded up houses.
Yeah, we don't want that.
We don't want that. So, and taxes are going up in the community. You understand everybody's pinching pennies today to make it go. We need some action. We don't need talk, we need action. And this is going to be a key voting element for us in the fall, if we don't have our roads done,
Absolutely. I understand.
you know.
I absolutely understand.
And we're hoping not to have to litigate this on our own. But we're done waiting. So please talk with them and see if you can get us a timeline. It would be appreciated if one committee member would step up, like on another issue that came up in previous meetings, get a committee member to work with Bob Smith to oversee what Bob Smith's doing or negotiating with the builder and get some feedback to our community as to what's going to happen. Or come out and visit us. Just don't drive through. You could stop by and visit us at our clubhouse. Maybe even have a meeting with our residents.
The music's on, you have to sit down now, the music came on. I'm kidding.
Music's on, I'm done. All right. All right. So thank you. We appreciate whatever
You will hear from us within, I would say, 10 days, at least, if not sooner.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay? Mr. Strye.
Just a question. What action did you take on 3A? I know you voted on something. The,
Oh, so we gave it, Phil, Brett are going to, what we'll do is we'll introduce a new, amended ordinance,
amending which ordinance?
both of them. The redevelopment and the
Okay.
cannabis.
Okay, oh, okay, so
Incorporating
you're
that
gonna-
flow chart,
Okay,
okay?
okay, very good. Thank you very
So
much.
so then, that gives you guys, the public a chance to come up and
I
talk
understand.
again,
No, thank you.
all right? Anybody else?
Motion to close?
I have a motion?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. We will be going into executive session. Need a motion?
To go into executive session?
Are we coming out? I believe we are. Is that correct?
We will be coming out.
Art made the motion? Yes?
I have a motion.
Need a second?
For executive?
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion to second. All those in favor to go into executive session?
Aye.
Against?
Be it resolved.
Want to start that again? Brett just started.
We had a motion and a second, and we voted to go back into public session, so we are in public session. Our solicitor went out and checked. There's nobody out in the vestibule. Rita, do you want to go ahead and read the first?
Yes. Would you like to do the rank and file first?
Let's do rank and file first.
All right. Resolution to ratify PBA Mainland Local 77 Agreement, Hamilton Township, rank and file, January 1, 2023, December 31st, 2025. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that the collective bargaining agreement between the Township of Hamilton and the New Jersey State Police Benevolent Association Mainland Local Number 77, Hamilton Township, rank and file, dated January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2025, is hereby ratified, and that the mayor is authorized to execute same on behalf of the township.
Do we need a motion?
Motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Shanker?
Yes?
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
Resolution to ratify PBA Mainland Local 77 Sergeants Union Unit Agreement, January 1, 2023, December 31st, 2025. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that the collective bargaining agreement between the Township of Hamilton and the New Jersey State Police Benevolent Association Mainland Local 77 Sergeants Unit, dated January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2025, is hereby ratified, and that the mayor is authorized to execute same on behalf of the township. Need a motion?
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and carried. Resolution to ratify PBA Mainland Local 77 Lieutenant Unit Agreement, January 1, 2023, December 31st, 2025. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that the collective bargaining agreement between the Township of Hamilton and the New Jersey State Police Benevolent Association Mainland Local Number 77 Lieutenant Unit, dated January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2025, is hereby ratified, and the mayor is authorized to execute same on behalf of the township.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mayor Patali?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Motion to adjourn?
Better open it up for public comment. then.
No.
No.
Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? We are